where Will County comes to talk. The Kevin Kollins Show on 1340 WJOL.
This is what you need. 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 This is what you need.
5:11. It's a Kevin Kollins Show on 1340 WJOL. What you need to know. We do it every day, about 5:10. Talk about the big stories, the fun story, just a little bit of an update on the day's activities. Evan, what do we need to know?
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is stepping up the state's response to severe flooding.
I have, as governor, declared disaster declarations from literally the Red River to the Rio Grande, where flooding has been taking place across the state.
Abbott said surrounding states have offered aid after strong storms swept through the area and thanked his fellow governors for their support. He added that Texas should heed warning to evacuate if necessary and shouldn't try to cross high water. Abbott remarked that many of the lives lost in his state over the weekend happened when people ignored warnings to avoid certain places.
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable amount of rainfall. You know, you remember, was it 2 springs ago now that we had that bad flooding here in Joliet and Plainfield? And I think the most we got there, if I ever remember right, was 6 inches was what we got in one of those rainfalls. You know, in Texas, the ground there, it is not made to saturate water. At least here, you know, we've got that great topsoil and a lot of actual earth. You know, with the sand that they've got there and the rock, a couple inches of rain and it just doesn't have anywhere to go and it just runs down the streets. And if you saw that the streets, they got boats driving down pretty much the streets all over the Houston area, and it's a tragedy there. And like I said, last night at the Toyota Center where the basketball finals were taking place for the NBA Western Conference, the Rockets, they advised people that were still there towards the end of the game. I think it was after the game was over, but shortly after that, they said, we advise you not to leave because of the flooding that's going on. And there were hundreds and hundreds of fans, as well as Dwight Howard from the Rockets, that were stuck there in the stadium until early this morning, until they could finally get them out and get them on their way home. So the tragedy there, it looks like the forecast I checked down there, it looks like they're going to be okay from rain here later in the week. And so hopefully they can get this all cleared out and they should end up being okay.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest is warning that critically important national security tools will be gone if parts of the USA Patriot Act are allowed to expire on Sunday.
The president is hopeful that for the sake of our country's security and for the sake of our citizens' privacy, that the Senate will meet that deadline.
Lawmakers are taking an extended Memorial Day recess this week. Before leaving town, the House passed a bipartisan measure which essentially ends the NSA's bulk collection of American phone data. President Obama supports the House bill, but Senate Republican leaders want to extend the NSA program as it is.
Yeah, it's, boy, the Patriot Act, I don't know. This is one that is really, really, really difficult because, you know, most people would agree that the number one task of the government, the number one task is protecting this country from, you know, with the military from overseas. And the Patriot Act after 9/11 was designed to make it easier to go after terrorists and protect us from terrorists. And I know a lot of people are making that argument with the Patriot Act that that's exactly what this is what the government is here for. However, on the other side, a lot of people believe the Patriot Act goes a little bit past that and infringes just a little bit on some of our rights. I'm torn. I think there are pieces of that need to be ripped out, need to be overhauled a little bit, but there's a lot of it, I think, that has stopped probably a lot of attacks, and we need to address it.
Hillary Clinton has her first official competitor for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination now that Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has formally declared his bid for the White House.
We've got to demand that corporate America start reinvesting in the United States of America, not China. It is a huge issue. I voted against all of these agreements. I will help lead the opposition against the TPP.
He's, of course, talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which we've heard Congressman Dan Lipinski talk about.
Not a fan.
His objection to many times as well. Sanders, 73, is the oldest declared candidate thus far this cycle, and he's trekked a long path to his announcement. Born and raised in Brooklyn, he moved to Vermont in 1964 after college. He became mayor of Burlington, Vermont's largest city, in 1981. He held that post until 89. He won a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in 1990 and served in the lowest chamber for a decade and a half. In 2006, he sought and won Vermont's open Senate seat, a perch he still occupies today.
You know, with these trade agreements like NAFTA, which basically opened up the border with Mexico. And I honestly, I don't think it matters, because here's the thing. Let's say we went back and we got rid of NAFTA, saying that would bring the jobs back here to the United States. Well, all it's going to do is increase the price that it costs to make that product, which means it's going to be passed on to the consumer. Yeah, it's going to create more jobs, but everyone's going to have to spend more money, and not just on that product, but all the other products, as opposed to taking it over there where the products are going to be cheaper, but there's fewer jobs. Like I said, I think it's, half a dozen, 6 of one and half a dozen of another with these trade agreements. And if you look at it from the business standpoint, businesses are like, listen, we should be able to conduct our business wherever we want. If we want to have it, do it here, do it there, we should be able to do it wherever we want. My gut tells me I think we need be a little bit more strict with the tariffing and allowing products to come in and our products to go out. I think we have to extend some tariffs a little bit more and start dinging these companies that are bringing the products in here. So this specific trade, this is something that President Obama is trying to do without any congressional approval on the deals that they can sign, and I don't know that I like the policy of that.
I have some Bernie Sanders facts.
I know nothing about Bernie.
You want me to run through them?
Yes.
They're 5. They're quick. He's not officially a Democrat. Although he caucuses with the Democrats, he's actually an independent in the United States Senate. He actually identifies himself as a democratic socialist. He's actually a huge champion for veterans. He was actually one of the architects of the legislation that was passed last summer to address the problems within the VA after lawmakers were spurred to action due to reports of chronic treatment delays in VA facilities that had been linked to dozens of veteran deaths. He says he's not a spoiler. He says that if he runs for the White House, it won't be to run a futile campaign that he actually can't win, although he is still a long shot candidate. A recent CBS News poll found 68% of voters said they didn't know enough about him to say whether or not they would consider supporting him. Among those who had an opinion, 14% said they would vote for him. 18% said they would not. That was the second highest percentage for a potential Democratic nominee. Joe Biden was the highest at 26%. And Bernie Sanders actually has a brother in politics, just not in this country. It's across the pond in Britain. His brother moved Larry Sanders to Britain in 1969 and became active in politics there. He's a member of the Green Party who recently ran for Parliament.
Wow. Vermont, I'm assuming you've never been to Vermont.
No, I'd love to go.
It is one of the most bizarre states ever, Evan. It is, you want to talk about opposite ends of the spectrum. On the one end, like the city of Burlington and a lot of the urban populations in Vermont, very, very, very liberal, very artsy, very cultured. But then you get in some of the smaller towns, and it's about as redneck hillbilly as you can get. And it's so bizarre because Vermont is known as a pretty liberal state, yet you get outside of, and Burlington's not a big city. I think it's smaller than Joliet. But you get outside of there. I went out to Vermont for the first time. A good friend of mine was getting married, and I was the best man at his wedding. So I went to Vermont for the first time. My wife and I, we flew into Boston. We drove up to Vermont, and we went to rehearsal dinner. And it was casual. I will say you were not required to wear a suit or anything. So I was casual. I was dressed casual, but 2 of the other groomsmen had on co-ed naked T-shirts. Wore them to the church and then to the rehearsal dinner.
Kevin, Burlington, Vermont, you said it's probably not even bigger than Joliet.
70,000, I'm going to guess.
42,000. It's just slightly bigger than Buffalo Grove. In between Buffalo Grove and Lombard.
Yeah, but it is a gorgeous state. I mean, it is.
So you said it's liberal within the big city, and then out in the country, it's very, very conservative.
I mean, it's like
So it's Texas.
Yeah, or like even, it's really bizarre.
Austin's super liberal.
I guess
the capital.
You could say a little bit
like
like
of the state.
You could say a little bit like Illinois.
Yeah.
A little bit like Illinois. I mean, yeah, but it is a gorgeous, beautiful state. Mountains and rivers and really, really interesting. 5:20, it's the Kevin Kollins Show on 1340 WJOL. That's what you need to know. We do it every day at 5:10.